Man, I tell you what, there are a few things that are like subconsciously or autopilot wise harder than driving on a cold ass day when the sun's just like beating down on you.
Is it one of those things where it's kind of like an oxymoron for you? That it's a sunny day, but it's cold as shit?
I think it's just because you're cold as hell. Then you get in the car and like at first you're still cold, but then once you get moving, heat's on, you get kind of cozy, the sun's on you. I mean, I just want to like nod off. I mean,
when it's sunny, I never want to nod off. It's more when it's like rainy and drizzling.
I'm paranoid then, but maybe I'm just in a nodding off mood today. So I had to do continuing education earlier. It's online. You just listen to this stuff, right? Well, I swear, for like a 3 count, I think this moderator person says sexually transmitted affection. I'm like, oh shit. People claiming they catch affection from sex now? Get out of here.
You haven't caught affection from sex in a while.
That's so wrong.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Edwards, and with me, as always, is Zeke Baker. And together we make the Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, thank you for making us a part of your day. How are you, my friend? You need a hug?
Not your kind of hugs.
I'm not giving you those kind of hugs. Just saying, like, if you need a shoulder to cry on.
No way. No how.
Well, it is great to see you. You're about to go on vacation, so we got to get some episodes in before you go. And we are raiding the vault. There's a lot of people that are reaching out to me right now, so thank you for being patient. We've had a pretty long queue this year, and there's tons of people that are saying, hey, are you going to get in an episode for us before the end of the year? And I'm like, hey, it comes first in, first out, and we always get to it all. Apologies to the good folks at Hudson Whiskey who sent us something months ago, and we are just now getting to it. So before we get started with that, today's show is sponsored by Cask Cartel, your premium spirits marketplace. They are like the Amazon of the spirits industry. They hook you up with merchants that will send whiskey, liquor, whatever it is, directly to your door. The allocated stuff is going to cost a little bit more because, hey, it's a convenience play. You don't have to wait in line. You don't have to do a raffle. You just have to click a couple buttons. Even Zeke can do it. So go ahead and visit caskcartel.com or follow them on Instagram at Cask Cartel. They're always doing giveaways to their followers. Today's show is also sponsored by the good folks at Premium Bar Products. And that is the place where you can go and get the official Dad's Drinking Bourbon Glencairn. You can also get custom laser etched glassware. And I think I am going to get Zeke some custom laser etched glassware that says sexually transmitted affection. And you can do that if you go to premiumbarproducts.com. They have all sorts of different glasses for you, and you can design all sorts of cool things to personalize it for you. If you are a bourbon group or a store or a distillery and you have a larger order, reach out to me. I'll get you in touch with them. They have some wholesale options as well at premiumbarproducts.com. Use codes DADS10 to get 10% off your custom order. So the Dad's Glens are not included in those, but your custom order is 10% off if you use code DADS10. Zeke, let's get right into it. The folks over at Hudson, they kind of redesigned everything. I don't know if you saw these. I know the people can't see it. They'll see it on Instagram, but they redesigned the label. So it used to be Hudson Baby Bourbon.
That was going to be my first question, was if this was the same Hudson, New York people or someone with just a similar, last name or something.
Nope, it's the same stuff. It's still Tulletown, and it is in Gardner, New York, and they redesigned everything. I kind of like what they did here. So they sent us a Bourbon and Rye. The bourbon is Bright Lights Big Bourbon, and the rye is called Do the Rye Thing. So they kind of took that New York attitude, little Spike Lee up in there, little Bright Lights Big City for the bourbon, and they redesigned everything. Cooler, more modern label, and then a little bit more minimalized than what they had before. The writing was kind of scrunchy on the other one, but you know what people have said about it before. This is kind of a reboot for them. So this bourbon is 46% ABV, 92 proof, aged at least 3 years. It's 95% corn and 5% barley. Do the Rye thing is the same 46% ABV, 92 proof, minimum of 3 years, and it is 95% rye, 5% barley. And I didn't know this about the bourbon before. I didn't know it was 95 corn and 5% barley.
I remember it being corn heavy because the whatever the label said on it, it was like baby corn or whatever.
Yeah, I never realized that.
Is the rye their own, or is it Indiana since it's 95.5?
No, it is theirs. It is distilled and matured by Tulletown Spirits.
Okay. I mean, I knew other people use that same formula. It's just, I figured it's best to throw that out there ahead of time for folks since it is such a common mash.
Funny thing, when I was doing my research on these, both of these are kosher certified, by the way. If you're looking to be kosher, Hudson's the way to go.
Hey, Buffalo Trace had a big hit with that kosher stuff this year.
I know. And these guys are just kosher. They didn't even put it on the bottle.
I remember seeing on some of the boards, people, inevitably anytime Buffalo Trace comes out with their many limited releases throughout the year, that half the time people wonder why. You always see a lot of shade for it. But I do remember seeing plenty of comments going, it's not the only kosher whiskey. Buffalo Trace is once again just cashing in on some bullshit.
Well, there are plenty of whiskeys that are kosher, actually, and that's the funny thing about it. The way that you make it, you can get whiskey kosher certified pretty easily. Zeke, you said you wanted to start with the rye on this one. Before we get into that, do you have any of your wonderful thoughts, your pregame thoughts?
The only pregame thought I really had, when you mentioned that they kind of, hit the refresh button and, redid their labeling, packaging and everything, kind of stepped their game up a little bit, is when are you going to do that? I mean, now that you've been, working out, in shape and like your sleeves don't fit anymore, are you going to change the wardrobe up? Actually, this could go one of two ways. You could either change the wardrobe up or even go Larry the Cable Guy style and just cut all your sleeves off.
I dress better than you. What are you talking about?
I mean, he wears a lot of flannel and plaid and stuff. That's in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, but like when I show up to a dinner in a suit, I at least know what an iron is.
Fool, you wore socks with dress shoes. Rule number 1, don't do it.
You're supposed to wear socks with dress shoes.
Go consult GQ, little man.
And just because GQ did something, I have to do it?
That's who writes the fashion rules, John.
You know what? I make my own rules.
Like it's necessary to wear a hat in the gym for some reason, even though it's completely covered with a roof and there's no other reason.
Yeah, sometimes you want to sweat. 80% of the heat in your body goes out your head. So you want to sweat, wear a hat.
You want to sweat into your nice new hat and then make it turn yellow?
If it's a gym hat, yeah. Anyways, what do you think about this rye? You want to go there first? Let's go there first.
Well, literally, it was just because that's the one I already had notes on, so it would have been easiest. Nose-wise, I put down that it was piney, wintergreen, and red hots. Diving in a little bit deeper, I could maybe see somewhere some clove or even some mocha, kind of little variance there. Palate-wise, at first, man, like when it first hits, this was I just put this as a Christmas bomb. It really was. But that was just a real immediate flash for me, at least. I put down that it mellows nicely, but it still retains the cinnamon at a good level to where it wasn't overpowering, wasn't hot. The rye kick wasn't there. It was just a good, like right in the middle of the road flavor. It has a really good texture to it. I don't know. I don't think that's a note that I use much. I don't think you do either, but it was in my mind. It's like, this just has a good feel about it the whole way through. Slight oak at the back. And then just a crisp enough bite to kind of know something's there. But again, it wasn't overpowering, I guess, in like the sense of maybe a green apple or something where, it's perfectly ripe, good, snap when you bite into it and, just enough flavor to really enjoy and savor what you got.
It's funny. This one surprised the hell out of me. I agree with you. It's got that pine wintergreen on the nose. I got a hint of fruit along with that cinnamon and mocha there. The taste, I said it's what I would expect from a 95.5, but different at the same time because that mint and wintergreen is there, but it's almost like a mint and wintergreen hot chocolate. Like the consistency you're talking about is almost like that hot chocolatey texture that your mouth gets when you sip into that, where it's kind of chalky, but not too chalky. Like it's in a good way. Everything about this made me think of this was warm. You'd be sitting by the fire sipping this Hudson Rye, enjoying some couch time. But I did get the same things you got, the mocha, the oak. But I just said it didn't overpower. It was a 95.5 that wasn't screaming 95.5 to me.
That was why I wanted to know the mash because, like I say, the first flavor you get, the first sip, that's right where my mind went. Not even knowing what the mash was, just knowing it was a rye. Like, this must be an Indiana product. But then the way it moved, the whole other, no pun intended, 95% of the profile varied enough to where you could tell, like, I think this is a different product. This just doesn't have the hallmark features of a lot of 95.5 that comes out of Indiana.
I was a fan. What about the bourbon?
Nose wise, it reminds me of like a 60 to 70% burnt s'more. If you're a burnt a s'more, I mean, there's times when you catch that char coming off the marshmallow, but then at the same time, sometimes you get some graham, sometimes you get a little chocolate, sometimes you get the actual marshmallow from the middle, then it bypasses that char aroma and scents that hits. But smelling this thing, that's what I get 100% is just like a fairly burnt s'more.
Zeke Baker, burnt s'more connoisseur.
Well, how do you take your s'more?
I burn the mellow.
Yeah, like, when I was a kid, I used to always want it very lightly brown. Like I would purposely not ever let it catch on fire. But now I'm older and don't care. You're just like, F it. Let a good flame get on it, turn it all the way around in a 360 and then.
I do the same thing because it cooks it quicker.
Yeah, so you get older, you get lazier. But you remember like when you were a kid and like if you caught just enough of that char, you're like, no, I don't want that s'more, Daddy. You cooked it too much.
No, I never said that.
Boy, that's the last one. Well, touche.
Does my body look to you like I ever turned down a s'more?
I mean, there was the skate or die era. I'm still waiting on you and, Jinkos and Vans.
Anyways, what'd you get on the taste on this?
And again, this was before I knew the mash. I didn't really know this was a 95.5 going in. I thought it was corn syrupy and then also alcohol-y, and not in the best way. Kind of feel like it's approaching synergy, but you can definitely tell there's some youth there. It's kind of rough around the edges. And between the youngish, not quite aged enough corn and the amount of alcohol essence that comes off of there, they're not really synergizing too well together. It's not the worst thing in the world by any means. And I think with age, both of those characteristics should hopefully blend and get in more unison together. But for now, they're still two young siblings fighting, I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. The nose really reminded me of mellow corn. I said, well, it's got corn, kind of reminds me of mellow corn, little vanilla and floral notes in there as well. The taste, it's corny, but real creamy too. That's the interesting thing that I noticed. The mouthfeel surprised me a little bit on this in the sense it's thin in the front, but thick in the back. Like it's got some junk in the trunk. I just wasn't expecting that, but everything else that you said, I mean, it tastes like a young corn whiskey. It's not necessarily my jam. I'm not a big corn whiskey guy anyway. The only time I really like a high corn in there is like light whiskey that's a higher proof. If you like corn whiskey, I think this one has some complexity to it. And I think if it gets another year or two in the barrel, it'll really round it out.
Yeah, like I say, I mean, it wasn't one of those things you're like, oof, I don't need that to come across the board again. But I definitely think compared to the rye, this one still needs a little more time in the barrel. Something I did think about, though, since these are both a 95.5 with corn and then rye respectively, the way they both kind of, like you mentioned, have that, texture element to it that helps it flow pretty well. I mean, I would assume that's got to be the 5% barley. So they must be putting some either like a unique or a good grain form there to provide that into both products. Because I mean, it's definitely noticeable in both of them.
When you put it together and you blend it, I still get a lot of the young corn, and that just kind of overpowers it. So I know a famous Zeke Baker move is to blend these two together. For me, that corn is still there.
Yeah, I would see that easily just because, like I said, that rye is just at enough of a point where you get enough flavors to enjoy it, but none of them, are above the, sea level? Something like that.
I think it's exactly what you said. Having the rye and the bourbon. I think if you had the bourbon on your own, you're like, for something that could be as low, I've seen it from $24.99 to $40. But if you're finding something like that for $24.99, now it's a $24.99 for $3.75 for both of these. And then the rye is $39.99 for the $3.75. When you have the bourbon and the rye next to each other, the rye just, I think, is miles ahead of where this bourbon is. But I'm kind of interested to see where it goes, All
right, so where was the price in here? Is it $750s or $3.75s for $40?
So the rye is $40 for 375, and the bourbon I've seen as low as $24.99 for 375.
Are we selling any in 750s or 375s only?
375s only, I think.
Okay.
So where do you stand on these, Mr. Baker?
I mean, I did indeed enjoy the rye, and I think the bourbon, it's got what it needs to be where you would want it to be in a couple of years, but it's not quite there yet. But I don't know, $40 for a 375. I like the rye, but at the proof and the drinkability of it, that's $40 that's in and out the door pretty fast on a 375.
Yeah, but at the same time, if they were a craft distillery putting out an $80 rye, and then you're stuck with an $80 bottle, but say you want to try it out, you're not sure where it is. I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate here. I do really like the idea of bottling things at a 375. Like, I think all allocated bottles should now be at a 375 because the market just wants too many. Share the wealth. I wouldn't pass on the rye. I think if you want to try it at a bar or you want to get a bottle, I mean, $40 isn't going to kill you, and it's unique. I think, but that comes more from me that likes a unique 95.5 rye. So I like this rye. I'd buy a bottle. I would probably pass on the bourbon, but I would have my eye on it.
I'm somewhere in that ballpark. That or the side of the coin where, all right, let's give them a couple more years. They get a few more things paid off. It's the same price for $750. Whoa, I'm in.
Zeke, want to thank Hudson Whiskey again for sending these our way. You can find us on Facebook at Dad's Drinking Bourbon, Twitter at Bourbon Dads, Instagram at Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Find us wherever you download your podcast. Chances are you already have because you're already listening to us right now. Leave us an open and honest review just like we leave open and honest reviews about the whiskey we drink. I did that all in one breath. Zeke, where else can the folks find us?
Depending on when you put this out, I may very well be up in Breckenridge trying not to throw my hip out. Otherwise, I'll be here in Nashville.
Cheers.
Ciao.